Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're getting into the science of what really separates a good athlete from a truly great one. And here's a hint, it's not just about physical talent. It's about what's going on inside their head. And to kick things off, let's start with this quote from one of football's absolute greatest managers, Sir Alex Ferguson. Now, this is a guy who was a master of the game, and he knew, better than anyone, that winning was about way more than just physical skill.
He knew that what happens inside an athlete's head is every bit as important as what happens on the field. That right there, that's the invisible advantage. That's the champion's mindset.
You know, a really useful way to think about this is to picture an athlete's body as computer hardware. You know, the engine, the raw power. But their mind? That's the software, the operating system that makes it all run. I mean, you can have the best hardware in the entire world, but without elite software, you are never going to reach your full potential.
And Ferguson, well, he was a master at programming this mental software. He wasn't just coaching players like Cristiano Ronaldo or David Beckham on technique, he was building their mental fortitude, turning all that raw talent into legendary greatness.
Right, so how do we actually scientifically understand this software? Well, it all starts with personality, which is basically the fundamental psychological blueprint of an athlete.
And to get where we are now, you kind of have to see where we started. Early theories like Freud's saw our mind as this constant battle. You had the impulsive I, the moral superego, and then the poor ego trying to negotiate some kind of realistic plan between them. For an athlete, that's literally the battle between the part of you that wants to quit mid-race and that disciplined voice screaming, "Push through."
And this quest to map our minds, it goes way, way back. I mean, the ancient Greeks, for example, linked personality to 4 humors or fluids in the body. Now, we don't believe our fluids determine our temperament anymore, obviously, but it just goes to show you we've always known that our inner disposition is key to our outer performance. Then, as psychology started getting more scientific, the models got way more sophisticated. Hans Eysenck, for instance, he plotted personality on 2 key axes, introversion versus extroversion, and emotional stability versus instability. All of a sudden, we had a much more structured map of the athlete's mind.
And I'm sure a lot of you have probably even taken a test like the Myers-Briggs. It builds on these ideas, sorting people into one of 16 different types to help us understand how we see the world and how we make our decisions. But here's the thing, and this is so important. Personality might be the blueprint, but it is not destiny. The crucial point here is that mental skills, the tools in an athlete's toolkit, these can be trained, they can be sharpened, and they can be developed over time. So let's start with the absolute fuel for any great athlete, motivation. And this is usually broken down into 2 fundamental types that you can see right here, intrinsic and extrinsic.
So, extrinsic motivation, that comes from the outside. We're talking money, trophies, fame. It's powerful for sure, but it's often fleeting. Intrinsic motivation, though, that comes from within. It's the pure joy of competing, that drive for self-improvement. That's the sustainable fire. And the best coaches, they know how to use an external goal, like a championship, to ignite that internal, intrinsic desire to be the best.
Next up, we have self-confidence. This is rooted in what psychologists call our self-concept, which is this powerful intersection of how we see ourselves, how we actually value ourselves, and the person we're trying to become. A strong, aligned self-concept, well, that's the bedrock of elite confidence. And of course, you cannot be a champion without laser-like attention. It's the skill of locking on to what's important while filtering out all the other noise, the roar of the crowd, the weight of the moment, even that nagging voice of internal doubt. But here's where it gets really interesting. Attention isn't just one thing. A psychologist named Robert Nidefer created a model that shows it has 2 dimensions. You've got width, from broad to narrow, and direction, from external to internal. And this creates 4 totally distinct styles of focus that every great athlete has to master.
Okay, so think about a quarterback scanning the entire field for an open receiver. That's broad external focus. But a golfer about to putt, they need a narrow external focus on just that single target. A coach analyzing strategy during a game is using broad internal focus, while a gymnast mentally rehearsing a routine is all about that narrow internal focus. The greatest athletes can just shift between these states seamlessly.
And finally, elite athletes are masters of mental imagery, or what we usually call visualization. They are constantly running 2 different types of software in their minds. First, there's motivational imagery. That's picturing success, like lifting a trophy. And then there's cognitive imagery, where they mentally rehearse a specific physical act, like a perfect penalty kick, over and over and over again.
Okay, so that's all the science. But how are teams and coaches actually applying this stuff today to find and develop the next generation of champions?
Well, teams are moving way beyond the simple eye test now. They're using these powerful tools, like the Sports Personality Questionnaire. This thing doesn't just ask if an athlete is mentally tough. No, it analyzes 20 different psychological traits, everything from competitive drive to resilience, to build a complete mental profile.
And to see how this data works in practice, just look at this leadership potential matrix. What it does is it plots athletes on two key axes: their level of interaction and their level of aggression. This lets coaches literally map out their roster. Do you have a democratic captain who leads through consensus? Or maybe a supportive team player who's the glue holding everyone together? Or is that a fiercely focused individual player who just gets the job done? Understanding this mix is absolutely crucial, because every single one of these types is valuable.
And really, that's the key takeaway here. The goal of all this isn't to find some single perfect personality type. It's all about understanding each athlete's unique mental software so you can coach them better, put them in situations where they can thrive, and help them unlock their absolute full potential. Which brings us all the way back to that classic, age-old question. Are these champions born with these psychological gifts, or are they built through training and sheer dedication?
So what's the verdict? Well, the science suggests it's both. You need that natural blueprint, for sure, but you also have to build and refine the skills. But one thing is absolutely certain. The future of sport belongs to those who understand that the next champion will be found not by looking at a stopwatch, but by looking deep inside their mind.